In the world of trading, markets are not just numbers on a screen. They are living reflections of human emotion. Fear, greed, hope, and uncertainty pulse through every tick of the price chart. A trader who steps into this environment unprepared emotionally is like a sailor heading into a storm with no compass. What separates profitable traders from failures is not merely analytical skill or technical knowledge, but their ability to maintain psychological equilibrium in the midst of chaos. Emotional regulation under pressure is the mental armor that determines whether a trader will endure or collapse when the market tests their limits. Every trader begins with the same goal: to make money. Yet, the market has a brutal way of exposing the difference between those who can handle emotional turbulence and those who cannot. The losing trader reacts. The winning trader responds. This subtle difference defines the mental edge. Reaction is impulsive, driven by the primitive survival mechanism of the brain, the fight or flight response. Response, however, is deliberate, guided by awareness, self-control, and emotional intelligence. When a trade goes against them, the untrained trader's heart rate spikes. They begin to rationalize, to hope, to pray that the market will turn in their favor. Their internal dialogue shifts from strategic to desperate. The amygdala, the brain's emotional center, hijacks logic, leading to impulsive actions like moving stop losses, doubling down, or closing trades prematurely out of fear. Each of these actions stems from an inability to regulate emotional pressure. Meanwhile, the disciplined trader remains calm. They understand that loss is part of the process. Their emotions are not suppressed, but observed. They feel the discomfort of a losing position, yet they do not act on it. This detachment from emotion is not a lack of feeling. It is mastery over it. Profitable traders develop what psychologists call emotional granularity, the ability to identify and differentiate emotions in real time. Instead of saying, "I feel bad," they can articulate, "I'm frustrated because I broke my rule," or "I'm anxious because I'm risking more than I planned." This awareness gives them power. It transforms vague emotional discomfort into something that can be analyzed and corrected. Losing traders, by contrast, experience emotions in a blur. They feel off, stressed, or angry, but they can't pinpoint why. Their emotions control them because they never take time to label or understand them. Emotional regulation is not about being emotionless. The idea that great traders are robotic is a myth. In truth, they are deeply attuned to their emotional state, but have trained themselves not to let it dictate their behavior. They use emotion as information. For instance, a sudden spike of anxiety might signal overexposure in a position or a lack of confidence in their setup. Instead of fighting that emotion, they acknowledge it, reduce position size, and recalibrate. Under pressure, the human brain defaults to instinct. In trading, instinct often leads to destruction, because the instincts evolved for survival, not speculation. When a wild animal senses danger, running away ensures survival. When a trader sees a red candle, that same instinct screams to run, to close a position, avoid pain, and restore emotional safety. Yet markets punish those who obey fear blindly. The trader who can remain still amid emotional noise is the one who gives logic the time to reassert control. The most dangerous emotion in trading is not fear, it's overconfidence. A trader who feels euphoric after a string of wins becomes detached from reality. Dopamine floods the brain, creating a sense of invincibility. This biochemical high encourages risk-taking, larger position sizes, and deviation from rules. The trader no longer sees the market objectively. They see it as confirmation of their superiority. When the inevitable losing streak comes, their emotional fall is catastrophic. Profitable traders recognize this pattern and moderate their highs just as they manage their lows. They know that both euphoria and despair are illusions, two ends of the same emotional spectrum that must be balanced. In moments of extreme volatility, emotional regulation determines survival. Imagine watching a trade swing thousands of dollars in seconds. The screen flashes red, price gaps against your position, and social media feeds explode with panic. In that moment, the losing trader's identity merges with the trade. Every tick feels personal. Each loss feels like a reflection of worth. But the profitable trader remains detached. They see the movement as data, not judgment. They know that emotional attachment to trades is a form of ego. the belief that one can control or predict the uncontrollable. Letting go of that illusion frees the mind to focus on what can be controlled: risk, strategy, and execution. Neuroscience provides a deeper explanation for why emotional regulation is so critical. Under stress, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, shuts down. The amygdala takes over, pushing the trader into fight, flight, or freeze mode. This is why traders often do things they know they shouldn't, in the heat of the moment. Awareness of this physiological response allows profitable traders to counteract it through preparation. They build routines that minimize emotional volatility: pre-market meditation, journaling, controlled breathing, or simply stepping away from the screen when arousal spikes. These practices are not spiritual indulgences. They are psychological tools that keep the prefrontal cortex engaged under stress. The battlefield of trading is internal. The market doesn't know who you are. It doesn't care about your goals, dreams, or desperation. It simply reflects back your own psychology in amplified form. Emotional regulation is how a trader prevents their internal chaos from spilling onto the screen. It is the ability to hold tension without breaking, to observe fear without obeying it, to take losses without losing identity. Profitable traders understand that emotional control begins long before the trade. It starts in their preparation, in their environment, and in the way they talk to themselves. They design their setups to reduce cognitive load. They set predefined rules for entries, exits, and risk. This structure acts as an anchor during emotional storms. When volatility hits, they don't need to make decisions on the fly. The decisions have already been made. This reduces the emotional bandwidth required to act rationally. Losing traders, however, operate in improvisation. They enter trades on impulse, driven by the thrill of action, and then scramble to manage emotions they never prepared to face. A critical component of emotional regulation is acceptance. Profitable traders accept uncertainty, loss, and imperfection as inherent to the game. They don't waste energy resisting what cannot be controlled. This acceptance transforms anxiety into focus. Instead of fearing losses, they plan for them. Instead of dreading volatility, they prepare for it. This mindset doesn't eliminate fear, but it neutralizes its influence. Losing traders, on the other hand, treat every loss as personal failure. They fight the market, argue with price, and resist reality. The more they fight, the more emotional energy they drain, leading to burnout and erratic behavior. Another aspect of emotional control lies in recovery speed. Every trader experiences emotional drawdowns, but the profitable ones recover faster. They don't dwell on past mistakes. They dissect them, learn, and move on. They know that emotional residue from one trade can contaminate the next. Therefore, they treat their mind as they treat their capital, with risk management. They protect their mental capital by ensuring that one emotional event doesn't spiral into self-sabotage. Self-talk plays a massive role in maintaining composure. Internal dialogue is either an ally or an enemy. Profitable traders cultivate constructive self-talk. Follow your plan, wait for confirmation. The next setup will come. Losing traders engage in destructive narratives. I can't believe I did that again. I need to make it back now. I'm such an idiot. These statements create emotional feedback loops that reinforce negative behavior. Emotional regulation, therefore, involves not only controlling actions, but also the language of thought. The concept of emotional neutrality is a cornerstone of trading psychology. It doesn't mean indifference, it means equilibrium. When a trade wins, the trader doesn't feel euphoric. When it loses, they don't feel devastated. They see both outcomes as part of statistical variance. This neutrality allows for consistency, because emotions no longer distort perception. Consistency, in turn, compounds over time into profitability. There is also a profound paradox within emotional regulation. The more a trader seeks to avoid emotion, the more control emotion gains. Suppression leads to rebound. The key is not suppression but observation. Mindfulness practices teach traders to observe thoughts and feelings as passing events, not commands. When anger or fear arises, the trader acknowledges it. I feel anxious right now, and returns focus to execution. This simple act of acknowledgement prevents emotional escalation. Traders who achieve long-term success often treat the mind like an athlete treats the body. They train it daily through repetition and awareness. They know that discipline is not built in moments of excitement, but in moments of boredom. Those long hours of waiting for setups, journaling losses, and refining routines. This slow, repetitive mental conditioning strengthens emotional resilience. A critical insight is that emotional control and risk management are inseparable. When position size is too large, emotions will always overpower logic. Profitable traders size positions in alignment with their psychological threshold, not just their account balance. They know that emotional discomfort beyond a certain level leads to impulsive decisions. Therefore, emotional regulation begins with controlling exposure. Every dollar risked represents emotional weight. Keeping that weight manageable ensures clarity. Finally, emotional regulation under pressure requires humility. The market is a humbling force, and arrogance is emotional blindness disguised as confidence. Profitable traders respect the market's power. They accept that no system is perfect, no analysis flawless. This humility keeps their ego in check, and their emotions balanced. Losing traders, in contrast, see losses as insults. Their pride demands vindication, leading to revenge trading, a spiral of emotional reactivity that ends in ruin. Emotional regulation is not learned in comfort, it is forged in pain. Each loss, each mistake, each moment of self-doubt is an opportunity to strengthen emotional awareness. The profitable trader doesn't fear these moments. They use them. They view emotional discomfort as a signal pointing to areas of growth. Over time, this approach rewires the trader's relationship with the market. Pressure no longer feels threatening. It feels familiar, even necessary. The trader's greatest challenge is not reading the chart, but reading themselves. Markets will always be unpredictable, but the mind can be trained to stay centered. Emotional regulation under pressure is not an abstract concept. It is the heartbeat of consistent success, the silent skill that divides those who thrive from those who self-destruct when volatility strikes. In trading, rigid thinking is the silent killer of potential. The markets are dynamic, constantly shifting ecosystems of perception, probability, and psychology. A strategy that works today may fail tomorrow, and a trader who cannot adapt mentally is doomed to repeat the same mistakes until the account balance becomes the final teacher. Cognitive flexibility, the ability to shift perspectives, update beliefs, and modify behavior based on new information, is the defining mental trait that separates the consistently profitable trader from the chronic loser. It is not simply intelligence or experience. It is mental agility, the willingness to evolve when the market demands change. Cognitive flexibility begins with humility. It requires acknowledging that no one, no matter how skilled, can predict the market with certainty. Many traders cling to a single narrative, a belief that the market must rise because of fundamentals, or that a particular setup is infallible because it has worked in the past. But the market owes loyalty to no one's logic. Profitable traders understand this on a deep psychological level. They know that attachment to an idea, opinion, or bias is the first step toward emotional blindness. Cognitive flexibility allows them to detach from personal narratives and see the market for what it is in the present moment, not what they wish it to be. A trader without flexibility interprets information through the filter of confirmation bias. When they believe the market should go up, they unconsciously search for signs that validate that belief. Support zones, bullish news, social media opinions that align with theirs. Any contradictory evidence is dismissed or minimized. This selective perception creates a dangerous illusion of certainty. Profitable traders, however, train themselves to challenge their own assumptions. They actively look for reasons they might be wrong. This self-skeptical mindset prevents them from falling into cognitive traps that lead to catastrophic losses. Cognitive flexibility manifests in the way traders handle change. Markets are fluid expressions of collective behavior. What worked in a trending environment may fail miserably in a ranging one. A rigid trader continues to apply the same approach, convinced that persistence will eventually pay off. The flexible trader notices the shift in volatility, liquidity, and sentiment, and adjusts accordingly. This adaptation doesn't come from panic. It comes from awareness. Flexibility doesn't mean abandoning one strategy at the first sign of loss. It means interpreting loss as feedback, not failure. Every losing streak contains information about the market's current state. The flexible trader decodes this feedback and uses it to evolve. The psychology behind cognitive flexibility is rooted in metacognition, the ability to think about one's own thinking. Profitable traders engage in continuous internal dialogue. Is this my bias talking, or the market? What information am I ignoring because it makes me uncomfortable? Has volatility increased to a level that invalidates this setup? This type of mental questioning separates them from traders who react impulsively. The flexible mind questions itself not out of insecurity, but out of awareness that certainty is the enemy of adaptability. In moments of rapid change, such as news events or unexpected price reversals, the rigid trader freezes. Their mind clings to old data, trying to make sense of something that no longer fits the narrative. The flexible trader, on the other hand, immediately accepts new reality. They may take a small loss, but they do so with clarity. Their ego does not demand to be right. It demands to be aligned with truth. This ability to pivot mentally, without hesitation, guilt, or emotional resistance, is the essence of cognitive flexibility. A major obstacle to flexibility is ego attachment. When traders tie their identity to their analysis, they stop seeing data objectively. Every contrary movement feels like a personal insult. Profitable traders remove ego from the process. They treat their analysis like a hypothesis, not a prophecy. Each trade becomes an experiment designed to test probabilities, not prove personal worth. This detachment allows them to pivot without self-judgment. The losing trader, trapped in ego, resists change because change feels like defeat. In reality, change is survival. The mind's natural tendency toward cognitive rigidity stems from evolutionary wiring. The brain seeks patterns and stability because unpredictability once meant danger. In trading, however, the environment rewards adaptability over consistency of opinion. A flexible trader trains the brain to find comfort in uncertainty. This requires deliberate psychological conditioning, learning to accept that beliefs must evolve as fast as the market shifts. Cognitive flexibility, then, is not natural. It is cultivated through awareness, reflection, and repeated exposure to change. One of the clearest expressions of flexibility lies in the trader's relationship with loss. Rigid traders interpret losses as personal failures. They internalize the outcome emotionally, which fuels frustration, denial, or revenge trading. The flexible trader interprets the same loss as data. To them, loss is an information source, evidence that the market has changed or that an assumption was flawed. They adjust parameters, refine setups, or pause to observe before acting again. This scientific mindset transforms loss from punishment into progress. Cognitive flexibility also determines how traders handle success. Paradoxically, winning streaks can be more dangerous than losing ones. Success breeds overconfidence, and overconfidence breeds rigidity. A trader who has been profitable for weeks may start to believe they have figured it out. They stop questioning their bias, trade larger sizes, and ignore warning signs that volatility dynamics have shifted. Profitable traders maintain flexibility even in success. They treat each market phase as unique, resisting the temptation to project past performance into the future. They know that yesterday's edge can become tomorrow's weakness if left unexamined. At the heart of cognitive flexibility is emotional adaptability. The mind and emotions are inseparable in trading. When a trader experiences loss, fear arises. When they experience gain, greed or euphoria follows. Flexibility allows one to move fluidly between these states without losing control. It's not about suppressing emotion, it's about adjusting mental posture. When the market shifts, the trader shifts internally to match it. This synchronization between mind and environment creates psychological flow, where decisions emerge naturally and without resistance. The flexible trader's greatest asset is curiosity. Instead of reacting to the market with judgment, this shouldn't be happening, they approach it with inquiry. Why might this be happening? Curiosity opens space for learning. Judgment closes it. This curiosity-driven mindset transforms uncertainty from a threat into a challenge. The market becomes less of an adversary and more of a teacher. The rigid trader fights against the market, trying to impose their beliefs upon it. The flexible trader learns from it, evolving with each fluctuation. Adaptability in trading is also a function of time perception. Rigid traders operate within fixed expectations. a setup must play out in minutes, or a position must reach target today. When the market delays, they grow impatient and interfere. The flexible trader understands that timeframes expand and contract, depending on volatility, liquidity, and sentiment. They adjust expectations fluidly, allowing trades to breathe when conditions demand patience, and cutting them quickly when momentum dies. This dynamic time awareness prevents emotional exhaustion and preserves capital. Another dimension of cognitive flexibility is the capacity to balance opposing thoughts simultaneously. The market is full of paradoxes. Bullish fundamentals can coexist with bearish price action, and overbought conditions can lead to further rallies. The rigid mind demands clarity, one absolute truth. The flexible mind tolerates ambiguity. Profitable traders can hold conflicting ideas. The long-term trend is up, but the short-term momentum is weakening, and act accordingly without confusion. This ability to think in probabilities rather than certainties gives them a psychological advantage. Learning itself requires flexibility. Losing traders often seek one ultimate system, a magic formula that guarantees consistent profits. When that formula fails, they discard it entirely and chase another, repeating the cycle endlessly. Profitable traders approach learning differently. They understand that no system is perfect, only context-dependent. They integrate new insights gradually, testing and refining, without overhauling their entire approach. Their flexibility lies in synthesis, the ability to merge lessons from different experiences into a coherent, adaptive framework. A flexible trader's mindset resembles that of a scientist. They form hypotheses, test them through trades, and record results without emotional bias. Each outcome, win or lose, contributes to data collection. This approach builds objectivity over time. Rigid traders, in contrast, rely on belief systems rather than evidence. They treat opinions as facts and become emotionally invested in proving them correct. This cognitive rigidity blinds them to signals that contradict their narrative. Market narratives themselves can be intoxicating. Economic data, central bank policies, geopolitical events, all feed into collective storylines that shape sentiment. The rigid trader gets trapped in these stories, forming opinions that anchor their bias. The flexible trader acknowledges narratives but does not depend on them. They recognize that the market often moves ahead of logic, pricing in events before they unfold. Their mental agility allows them to adapt faster than those waiting for confirmation. Cognitive flexibility also extends to self-identity. Many traders subconsciously box themselves into identities. I'm a day trader. I only trade breakouts. I'm a contrarian. These labels provide comfort, but create limitations. Profitable traders transcend identity. They see themselves as students of the market, capable of adapting to any environment. If volatility dries up, they switch from scalping to swing trading. If liquidity shifts, they move from one asset class to another. They don't cling to a fixed self-image, because they understand that survival requires evolution. A flexible trader's routine reflects this adaptability. They review performance not to confirm success, but to identify where adjustment is needed. They ask whether their risk tolerance has changed, whether volatility conditions favor smaller or larger position sizes, whether their emotional state supports active trading or demands rest. This continuous feedback loop turns flexibility into a habit rather than a reaction. Over time, adaptability becomes instinctive. Cognitive flexibility is not just intellectual, it is deeply emotional. It requires a willingness to let go of control, to admit ignorance, to evolve beyond pride. The human mind craves certainty, but the market punishes certainty. Flexibility is the antidote to psychological rigidity, allowing traders to operate effectively in an environment that thrives on randomness. It transforms frustration into curiosity, fear into vigilance, and failure into feedback. The evolution of a trader's mind is not linear. It is cyclical, periods of success followed by adaptation, comfort followed by recalibration. The flexible trader embraces this cycle. They understand that every phase of growth requires shedding old beliefs to make room for new understanding. In doing so, they remain mentally agile, capable of navigating the unpredictable tides of the market without resistance or denial. Cognitive flexibility, therefore, is the invisible thread that ties together discipline, awareness, and adaptability. It is not merely the capacity to change one's mind, but the wisdom to know when and why to change it. The profitable trader moves through the markets like water, shapeless, fluid, adjusting to the structure of the environment without losing essence. The losing trader moves like stone, solid, unyielding, slowly eroded by the constant waves of volatility and change. In trading, every click of the mouse represents a decision under uncertainty. Each trade embodies a hypothesis about probability, yet the moment it's executed, that hypothesis is subjected to forces far beyond the trader's control. The ability to detach from the outcome of these decisions, to focus on process instead of results, is one of the defining psychological traits of a consistently profitable trader. Detachment from outcome does not mean apathy or carelessness. It is the deep mental discipline of caring intensely about execution, while remaining emotionally indifferent to individual results. It's the paradoxical balance between commitment and surrender, precision and acceptance. Most traders enter the markets seeking financial freedom, but end up becoming prisoners of emotional volatility. The problem isn't the market, it's identification. They attach their self-worth, confidence, and even identity to the results of their trades. When a trade wins, they feel validated, intelligent, superior, in control. When a trade loses, they feel shame, doubt, or anger. The outcome becomes a mirror reflecting their self-image. This attachment transforms trading from a probabilistic discipline into an emotional roller coaster. Profitable traders, on the other hand, decouple identity from performance. They don't see a winning trade as proof of intelligence or a losing one as evidence of failure. To them, each outcome is merely feedback, a data point in a much larger sequence of probabilities. Detachment from outcome begins with a shift in perspective. From seeking to be right to seeking to execute well, the losing trader obsesses over whether the next trade will make or lose money. The winning trader obsesses over whether the next trade follows the plan. This difference in focus changes everything. The former is emotionally reactive because the outcome is uncertain and uncontrollable, while the latter remains calm because execution is entirely within their control. Profitable traders measure success by the quality of their decision-making process, not by the profit or loss on any single trade. The market's unpredictability forces every trader into a psychological confrontation with uncertainty. Those who crave certainty suffer most. They interpret losses as betrayals of logic or fairness, unable to accept randomness as part of the game. The detached trader, however, embraces uncertainty. They understand that trading outcomes follow a distribution curve, a sequence of wins and losses determined by probabilities, not perfection. A single trade means nothing in isolation. Only a large enough sample reveals true skill. This understanding frees them from the emotional highs and lows that destroy consistency. The root of outcome attachment lies in the human desire for control. The brain evolved to find patterns and predict results, because predictability once meant survival. In trading, however, the environment is nonlinear, probabilistic, and often chaotic. Trying to control or predict each outcome creates frustration and tension. Detachment requires psychological reprogramming, training the mind to accept uncertainty as the natural state of the market. It's a form of cognitive surrender, an acknowledgement that skill lies not in predicting the next move, but in responding effectively to whatever happens. One of the most profound lessons in trading psychology is that the more a trader needs to win, the less likely they are to perform well. Attachment breeds tension. Tension breeds hesitation, impulsivity, and distorted perception. The detached trader, by contrast, operates with relaxed concentration. They can take losses without hesitation, exit trades without regret, and wait patiently for setups without forcing entries. This state of relaxed focus, what psychologists call flow, emerges only when the mind is free from fixation on outcome. Detachment also protects against the two emotional extremes that ruin traders: euphoria and despair. After a big win, the attached trader experiences a dopamine surge that blurs judgment. They increase risk size, skip analysis, and start believing they've found the secret. When the inevitable drawdown follows, the emotional crash is equally intense, leading to revenge trading or paralysis. The detached trader feels satisfaction, but not intoxication after a win. disappointment but not despair after a loss. Their emotional range remains stable because their sense of self isn't tied to any single trade. They view the market as a long-term feedback system, not a daily referendum on their intelligence. To achieve detachment, traders must redefine what winning means. In traditional life, results often determine value. Grades measure intelligence, sales measure success, social validation measures worth. Trading punishes this mindset. Profitable traders redefine winning as adherence to process, following rules, managing risk, and maintaining discipline. Every trade that aligns with the plan is a win, regardless of monetary outcome. This mental reframing transforms the emotional experience of trading. Losses no longer feel like failures. They become neutral events in a well-executed system. Process orientation requires structure. A trader cannot detach from outcome if there is no process to rely on. Structure provides psychological safety, the framework that separates personal emotion from professional execution. Before the session begins, the disciplined trader defines risk per trade, sets entry and exit parameters, and predefines scenarios for different market conditions. Once these parameters are in place, their only task is to follow them. This clarity allows emotional distance from results. The unstructured trader, by contrast, improvises, without predefined rules. They interpret each tick emotionally, making outcome attachment inevitable. The psychology of detachment is also rooted in mindfulness, the ability to stay fully present without judgment. Mindful trading means observing market fluctuations without projecting meaning onto them. A red candle is just data, not a personal insight. A stop-out is just a trade, not a reflection of failure. The detached trader observes emotions like fear, greed, or frustration without obeying them. They recognize emotional waves as transient, allowing them to rise and fall without interfering with execution. Over time, this awareness rewires neural pathways, reducing emotional reactivity and reinforcing calm under pressure. Detachment is often misunderstood as indifference. Indifference leads to carelessness, but true detachment leads to mastery. The detached trader cares deeply about precision, preparation, and discipline. They simply don't need validation from outcomes. They are engaged but not entangled. Their motivation comes from internal mastery rather than external reward. This distinction is subtle, yet powerful. Motivation based on control leads to fear of loss. Motivation based on growth leads to resilience. Another aspect of outcome detachment lies in emotional recovery. Every trader experiences losing streaks, but what differentiates professionals is how quickly they return to equilibrium. The attached trader spirals into self-doubt, analyzing losses emotionally instead of logically. They overcorrect, change systems, or stop trading altogether. The detached trader analyzes mechanically. Did I follow my plan? Was the setup valid? Did I respect my risk parameters? They focus only on controllable variables, ignoring randomness. This mental filtering accelerates recovery and prevents emotional contagion from one trade to the next. Ego is the natural enemy of detachment. The ego demands to be right, to be rewarded, to be in control. In trading, this is poison. The market constantly tests ego by offering uncertainty. When a trader believes they can or must outsmart the market, attachment deepens. The ego cannot tolerate being wrong, so it resists accepting losses or changing direction. The detached trader has transcended this need. They approach trading with humility, understanding that their job is not to be right, but to align with probability. Each trade becomes a statistical event, not a personal victory or defeat. This humility extends to risk. Profitable traders detach by embracing risk fully before entering a position. They mentally accept the worst-case scenario. Once the trade is live, they no longer need to hope, fear, or pray. The outcome has already been accepted as part of the statistical curve. This psychological pre-acceptance frees the mind to act rationally during the trade. The detached trader, however, enters with hidden denial. They hope the trade works out, unwilling to accept the possibility of loss. When price moves against them, they experience emotional conflict between expectation and reality, leading to reactive decisions. Detachment also transforms how traders interpret randomness. The market contains a high degree of noise outcomes that have no relationship to the quality of the decision. A bad trade can win due to luck. A good trade can lose despite perfect execution. The attached trader confuses outcome with quality, leading to cognitive dissonance. They start doubting good processes when results disappoint, or reinforcing bad habits when luck rewards them. The detached trader separates process from randomness. They judge performance by adherence to principles, not short-term fluctuations. This ability preserves consistency across hundreds of trades, where edge reveals itself statistically. The emotional discipline of detachment often develops through experience and failure. In the early stages of a trader's journey, emotions dominate. Each loss feels catastrophic, each win euphoric. Over time, repeated exposure to uncertainty desensitizes the emotional system. This is similar to psychological exposure therapy. The more the trader experiences uncertainty without reacting, the less power it holds. Eventually, the market's fluctuations become background noise, like waves to a sailor. The emotional system stops overreacting, because it has learned through repetition that outcomes are temporary and probabilistic. Cognitive detachment also requires awareness of internal biases. Humans are naturally loss-averse. Psychological studies show that losses hurt twice as much as equivalent gains. Feel good. This imbalance creates distorted perception. A trader may obsess over one losing day while ignoring 10 profitable ones. Detachment neutralizes this distortion. By treating each result as part of a larger distribution, the trader stops magnifying single events. This balanced perspective prevents emotional fatigue and maintains mental endurance over long trading horizons. Journaling is one of the most effective tools for cultivating detachment. Writing forces objectivity. When a trader records not only results, but emotions, thoughts, and decisions, they begin to see patterns. They notice how attachment leads to impulsive actions, overtrading after losses, hesitation after wins, or deviation from plans during volatility. This awareness transforms subconscious behavior into conscious choice. Each entry becomes a mirror reflecting how emotions distort perception. Over time, the trader learns to separate self from outcome, turning observation into detachment. A deep layer of detachment also involves redefining one's relationship with uncertainty itself. Most traders fear uncertainty because it represents loss of control. The detached trader embraces it as the natural medium of opportunity. They understand that without uncertainty, there would be no edge. If outcomes were predictable, profits would vanish. This realization transforms fear into gratitude. The trader stops fighting uncertainty and begins dancing with it. Every market movement, even adverse ones, becomes part of the rhythm they navigate with composure. The practice of detachment extends beyond trading sessions. The most disciplined traders consciously disconnect from market stimulation. No compulsive chat checking, no emotional rumination after closing trades. They protect mental bandwidth, ensuring emotional neutrality before returning to the market. This ability to turn off the market mind prevents emotional residue from accumulating. The attached trader, by contrast, carries the market everywhere, thinking about missed trades during dinner, checking positions in bed, reliving losses during sleep. Detachment, therefore, is not only about how one trades, but also about how one lives outside of trading. Ultimately, detachment from outcome represents a shift from external validation to internal mastery. The market becomes less of an adversary and more of a mirror reflecting the trader's own psychology. Through detachment, the trader transcends the emotional noise that enslaves the majority. Each tick, each trade, each result becomes data, feedback, and opportunity for refinement. The detached trader understands that success is not the elimination of loss, but the transcendence of emotional dependence on it. Every trader who steps into the market is, knowingly or not, entering into a relationship with uncertainty. It is the constant companion of every decision, the silent variable behind every trade, and the ever-present force that distinguishes speculation from mere prediction. The markets are a landscape of probability, not certainty, and resilience to uncertainty. The ability to remain psychologically stable and operationally effective amid constant unpredictability is one of the most vital mental traits of profitable traders. It is not the elimination of fear or doubt, but the capacity to function through them without losing clarity, structure, or discipline. Uncertainty is the natural state of markets, because they are built upon human behavior, and human behavior is inherently unpredictable. Prices are the collective output of millions of decisions made by people acting on different motivations, information, and time horizons. This makes the market a living organism, constantly shifting and adapting. Traders who seek certainty in such an environment are doomed to emotional exhaustion. The resilient trader accepts uncertainty as the cost of participation, understanding that survival and success depend not on controlling the market, but on controlling the self. Resilience begins with acceptance. Most traders, consciously or subconsciously, fight uncertainty. They want the market to make sense, to obey patterns, to reward effort. When it doesn't, they feel betrayed. They seek refuge in analysis, indicators, or complex models, hoping that knowledge will conquer randomness. But knowledge does not remove uncertainty. It only refines how one navigates it. Profitable traders internalize this truth deeply. They do not resist randomness. They integrate it into their expectations. This mental acceptance transforms frustration into readiness. Every possible outcome, from a winning streak to a string of losses, is already psychologically priced in. The untrained mind perceives uncertainty as danger. When a trade moves against them, stress hormones flood the bloodstream, cortisol, adrenaline, triggering survival instincts. The mind equates market loss with physical threat. This physiological response narrows focus, increases impulsivity, and shuts down rational decision-making. The resilient trader understands this biological mechanism and trains to counteract it. They create environments, rituals, and habits that calm the nervous system, breathing exercises before trading sessions, breaks during drawdowns, mindfulness routines that recenter attention. These practices are not luxuries. They are neurological maintenance systems that preserve decision quality under stress. Resilience is not stoicism in the traditional sense. It is flexibility under pressure. The rigid trader breaks when faced with volatility. They panic when trades deviate from expectations or when market conditions change suddenly. The resilient trader bends and adapts. They do not cling to certainty. They flow with uncertainty. Their strength lies in mental elasticity, the ability to adjust perspective quickly without losing composure. When volatility spikes, they reduce risk. When trends collapse, they step aside. When opportunity reappears, they act decisively. This responsiveness arises from emotional intelligence, not prediction accuracy. In the world of trading, uncertainty manifests in multiple dimensions: price direction, market timing, liquidity shifts, and even the trader's own psychological fluctuations. Resilience to uncertainty means managing all these dimensions simultaneously. It means holding open multiple potential scenarios in the mind without becoming paralyzed. Profitable traders train themselves to think probabilistically, not absolutely. Instead of "the market will go up," they think, "there is a 60% chance it goes up based on my system. And if it doesn't, my stop loss defines my exposure." This probabilistic thinking creates psychological room for flexibility. There is no catastrophic failure when an outcome differs from expectation, only data that informs the next decision. The psychology of resilience is deeply tied to one's relationship with loss. In trading, loss is not an anomaly. It is a constant. The fragile trader treats loss as a personal attack, an emotional wound that must be avenged. The resilient trader treats loss as a cost of doing business, a normal variable within a larger system of probabilities. This mindset shift is what prevents spiral behaviors such as revenge trading or overcorrection. Resilience means recovering quickly from losses, not by denial but by reflection. It is the ability to extract learning without emotional residue, to take accountability without self-condemnation. To cultivate resilience, traders must build tolerance for discomfort. The market will often place the mind in ambiguous zones: profits that fluctuate, setups that half confirm, positions that move sideways. The human brain craves closure, but markets rarely provide it. Resilient traders learn to dwell in these gray areas without forcing resolution. They can hold uncertainty without emotional urgency. This tolerance for ambiguity is what allows them to stay in winning trades longer and avoid premature exits, born of impatience. It also allows them to sit through dry periods without succumbing to boredom or overtrading. Resilience to uncertainty is not just mental but systemic. Profitable traders design systems that protect them from emotional overload. They define risk per trade, cap daily losses, and establish boundaries that prevent financial chaos. These structures act as psychological scaffolding. They transform overwhelming uncertainty into manageable risk. The mind feels more grounded when risk is quantified, because it can focus on process rather than fear. Losing traders, by contrast, operate without defined parameters, leaving themselves exposed to emotional extremes. When uncertainty strikes, their systems crumble because they were built on hope, not preparation. The resilient trader also understands that uncertainty is cyclical. There are periods when the market is clear, trends are clean, and setups work beautifully. Then, without warning, conditions change. Volatility increases, patterns distort, correlations break down. The fragile trader interprets this as betrayal or failure. The resilient trader interprets it as a natural phase shift in market rhythm. They step back, observe, and recalibrate. They see uncertainty not as an obstacle, but as a signal that adaptation is required. This cyclical understanding prevents burnout and preserves long-term consistency. Emotional regulation plays a pivotal role in resilience. Every trade activates emotional responses: anticipation, anxiety, hope, frustration. Resilience does not mean suppressing these emotions. It means processing them without impulsive reaction. Profitable traders develop emotional literacy. They can identify and name what they feel in real time. I'm anxious because I have too much size, or I'm frustrated because I missed an entry. This clarity prevents emotion from hijacking action. Awareness creates separation. Separation creates control. Through repetition, this process becomes automatic, forming an emotional immune system that neutralizes stress before it manifests as impulsive behavior. Cognitive reframing is another critical component of resilience. When uncertainty leads to loss, the untrained mind focuses on what went wrong. The resilient mind reframes. What information is this giving me? Instead of seeing loss as damage, they see it as feedback. This reframing transforms emotional pain into learning potential. It also maintains self-esteem. A trader who sees losses as lessons does not internalize them as personal inadequacy. Over time, this mental framework builds confidence that no event, however painful, is wasted. Resilience to uncertainty also requires detachment from short-term results. Every market outcome contains randomness, and randomness can obscure true performance. A trader might execute flawlessly and still lose money. Without resilience, this randomness creates confusion and doubt. The resilient trader zooms out, viewing performance across hundreds of trades, not tens. This long-term perspective stabilizes emotion and reinforces discipline. They trust that the law of large numbers will expose the edge, provided execution remains consistent. This trust is not naive optimism. It is empirical confidence built through experience and journaling. A vital part of resilience is routine. The mind craves stability, and routine provides it. Profitable traders create pre-market rituals, post-trade reviews, and structured breaks. These routines act as psychological anchors, grounding them amidst market chaos. The repetition of familiar actions, checking news, reviewing setups, setting alerts, creates a rhythm that offsets the randomness of trading outcomes. The unstructured trader wakes up, opens charts, and jumps in. Without a grounding routine, they are emotionally exposed. Their nervous system mirrors the volatility of the market. Resilient traders, on the other hand, maintain inner order, even when the outer environment is chaotic. Resilience is also measured by recovery speed. It's not whether a trader experiences emotional shock, it's how fast they return to equilibrium. After a loss or a market shakeout, the resilient trader has systems to decompress, stepping away from screens, engaging in physical movement, meditating, or reviewing calmly. They understand that mental fatigue distorts perception, and perception is everything. They protect clarity as they protect capital. This deliberate recovery process prevents cumulative emotional damage that can sabotage long-term performance. Self-trust forms the backbone of resilience. A trader who does not trust their process or instincts crumbles under uncertainty. Self-trust is earned through repetition, by following the plan, taking defined risks, and seeing evidence of discipline over time. Each moment of integrity strengthens the mind's belief in its own stability. The fragile trader seeks external validation from social media, news, or other traders, because they lack this internal foundation. The resilient trader looks inward. They know that confidence is not the absence of doubt, but the ability to act effectively despite it. The concept of psychological capital mirrors financial capital. Every stressful event draws from it. Every recovery replenishes it. The resilient trader manages this capital carefully. They know when to trade aggressively and when to rest, when to analyze deeply and when to detach. They avoid emotional overexposure just as they avoid financial overexposure. Losing traders burn through psychological capital recklessly, trading through exhaustion, chasing losses, or analyzing obsessively. Over time, emotional depletion leads to burnout, and burnout leads to irrationality. Resilience requires preservation of mental energy through balance, rest, and perspective. Resilience to uncertainty also emerges from identity alignment. Traders who define themselves solely by their results become emotionally unstable when outcomes fluctuate. The resilient trader defines themselves by qualities: discipline, patience, awareness, adaptability. These qualities remain stable regardless of market conditions. This internal identity provides emotional continuity. Whether in profit or loss, the trader's sense of self remains intact. This stability is what allows them to keep showing up with focus and consistency, even after painful drawdowns. Curiosity is another secret ingredient of resilience. The curious mind does not fear uncertainty. It investigates it, instead of resisting what the market is doing. Resilient traders ask, "What can this teach me?" Curiosity transforms uncertainty into discovery. It dissolves emotional resistance by replacing judgment with exploration. When the mind is curious, fear loses grip. This mindset transforms even chaos into data, a constant process of learning rather than suffering. There is also a deeper philosophical aspect to resilience: detachment from the illusion of control. The market humbles everyone eventually. No amount of experience, data, or intuition can fully predict the future. Resilient traders find peace in this truth. They stop trying to dominate uncertainty and instead learn to dance with it. They adopt a mental posture of surrender, not defeat. This surrender is not weakness. It is strength, born of realism. It allows them to conserve energy, adapt efficiently, and remain psychologically grounded when others panic. Resilience, in essence, is emotional endurance built through exposure, reflection, and adaptation. It is the cumulative result of thousands of uncertain moments survived and studied. Each shock, each drawdown, each unpredictable twist becomes a conditioning experience. Over time, uncertainty loses its ability to intimidate. What once triggered anxiety now triggers awareness. What once caused hesitation now triggers preparation. The resilient trader evolves beyond the need for certainty altogether. They find stability not in prediction, but in adaptability. Trading at its core is an act of perception. It's not about predicting the market. It's about perceiving reality accurately and acting within it without distortion. But perception is filtered through the lens of the mind, and the mind is full of biases, impulses, and hidden patterns. This is why self-awareness is one of the most critical components of trading mastery. Without it, the trader becomes enslaved to subconscious behaviors that sabotage consistency. Self-awareness allows the trader to observe their thoughts, emotions, and tendencies in real time, while pattern recognition allows them to decode both market behavior and their own repetitive reactions to it. The combination of these two mental skills forms the psychological foundation upon which true trading expertise is built. Every trader begins their journey believing they are battling the market. They think the challenge lies in decoding price action, understanding indicators, or timing entries and exits. Eventually, the truth reveals itself. The real battle is internal. The trader is fighting their own biases, their own emotional impulses, and their own inability to see themselves objectively. Self-awareness is the light that exposes these inner forces. It transforms trading from an external contest into an internal process of observation and mastery. Self-awareness begins with recognition. Understanding that every decision made on the chart is influenced by something beneath the surface. When a trader moves a stop-loss impulsively, adds to a losing position, or exits a trade too early, it is rarely due to strategy failure. It is due to emotional interference. Fear, greed, impatience, ego, and hope operate in the subconscious, shaping decisions subtly yet powerfully. A trader without awareness blames the market for their losses. A trader with awareness realizes that the market merely revealed what was already within them. To cultivate self-awareness, one must begin to observe behavior without judgment. This means tracking not only trades, but also emotions. How did I feel before entering this position? What thought made me act? Was this trade a response to boredom, frustration, or genuine analysis? The process of recording and reflecting creates distance between impulse and action. Over time, patterns emerge, not in the charts, but in the trader's psyche. Perhaps one realizes that they overtrade after losing days, or that they exit too soon when profits begin to rise, or that they chase setups during quiet markets. Each of these patterns represents a psychological loop, and awareness is the first step to breaking it. Pattern recognition, in this context, is twofold. On one level, it is the technical ability to identify recurring formations in price support and resistance levels, momentum shifts, volume spikes, and volatility cycles. On another deeper level, it is the ability to identify one's internal emotional and cognitive patterns. The first kind of pattern recognition is external. It reads the market. The second is internal. It reads the self. Profitable traders excel in both. They understand that their inner state mirrors their interpretation of external data. When the mind is calm, patterns appear clearer. When the mind is chaotic, even the cleanest chart looks confusing. Self-awareness transforms the trader's relationship with uncertainty. Instead of reacting to the market blindly, they begin to respond with precision. They can sense when they are trading out of alignment, when emotions are driving decisions rather than logic. For instance, a trader might notice a tightness in the chest before entering a position, signaling that fear is present, or they may observe excitement rising after a series of wins, recognizing the onset of overconfidence. This moment of recognition acts as a psychological circuit breaker. It interrupts automatic behavior, allowing conscious choice to reassert control. Without this interruption, emotion drives action and action drives loss. One of the biggest illusions in trading is the belief that knowledge alone creates success. Countless traders spend years mastering technical systems, reading books, and studying charts, yet they fail repeatedly. The missing ingredient is introspection. The unexamined trader cannot improve because they don't know what actually causes their mistakes. Every trader has a unique psychological fingerprint, specific triggers, fears, and motivations that influence their style. One trader may fear missing out, leading to impulsive entries. Another may fear loss, leading to hesitation. Only through self-awareness can these subconscious motivators be identified and transformed into conscious control. Journaling is a powerful tool for cultivating both awareness and pattern recognition. Writing after every session captures not just results, but states of mind. It allows the trader to see correlations between emotion and performance. Over time, journal entries reveal repetitive cycles, streaks of losses that follow periods of euphoria, or disciplined execution that follows rest and mindfulness. This process converts vague intuition into data. What was once emotional fog becomes measurable behavior. Awareness turns into insight, and insight turns into change. Self-awareness also dismantles the illusion of control. Many traders cling to the fantasy that perfect analysis can guarantee perfect outcomes. This need for control is rooted in insecurity, a psychological defense against uncertainty. The more one fears loss, the more one tries to control every detail, every tick, every outcome. But the market cannot be controlled. Only the self can. When a trader becomes aware of their desire for control, they begin to release it. They learn to accept uncertainty as natural, focusing energy on preparation and execution, rather than prediction. This surrender paradoxically enhances control, because now, control is directed inward, where it belongs. Pattern recognition in the market mirrors the brain's ability to detect order and chaos. Every chart is a representation of collective psychology, fear and greed visualized through price movement. The trader's task is to identify recurring emotional signatures in that collective behavior. For example, panic selling often leaves distinct footprints on the chart: sharp declines, volume spikes, and capitulation wicks. Euphoric buying manifests as parabolic rises, followed by exhaustion candles. The trader who has studied both market maker and their own psychology recognizes these as emotional extremes, not just in others, but within themselves. When they feel tempted to buy at euphoric highs or sell at fearful lows, self-awareness reminds them that these impulses are reflections of the same mass psychology visible on the chart. The intersection between self-awareness and pattern recognition forms a feedback loop. The more aware the trader becomes of their emotional cycles, the more accurately they can interpret similar emotional cycles in the market. The more they recognize market patterns, the more they understand their internal reactions to them. Eventually, the trader's intuition sharpens, not as a mystical sense, but as a subconscious synthesis of experience and awareness. Intuition becomes informed awareness, grounded in pattern recognition rather than impulse. Self-awareness also acts as a regulator of ego. The ego thrives in extremes. It wants to be right, to win, to prove superiority. In trading, ego is deadly because it blinds perception. A trader driven by ego stops seeing what is, and instead starts seeing what they want to see. They hold losing trades longer, because admitting a mistake feels like defeat. They increase size recklessly after wins, because they believe they are invincible. Self-awareness exposes ego in real time. It allows the trader to catch themselves mid-thought. Am I holding this because the setup is still valid, or because I don't want to be wrong? That single moment of reflection can prevent catastrophic decisions. Emotional regulation is a direct byproduct of self-awareness. One cannot control what one does not first observe. Profitable traders don't suppress emotions. They observe them until emotions lose their power. The act of observation itself creates distance. Anger, fear, or greed become objects of study rather than forces of control. This detached awareness transforms reaction into response. It's the same principle monks use in meditation. Observe the thought without becoming the thought. In trading, it translates into observing the impulse to act without immediately executing it. That pause, that space between stimulus and response, is where mastery begins. Pattern recognition also extends to performance cycles. Every trader experiences phases of alignment and disconnection. Periods where decisions flow effortlessly, and others where nothing seems to work. The unaware trader forces trades during disconnection, deepening losses. The self-aware trader recognizes when their rhythm is off. They step back, recalibrate, and return only when clarity returns. They treat trading like an athlete treats performance, understanding that physical and mental states fluctuate. This cyclical self-awareness preserves capital and prevents burnout. Another crucial dimension of self-awareness is the recognition of cognitive biases. The human brain is wired with shortcuts that distort reality. Confirmation bias makes traders seek evidence that supports their beliefs. Loss aversion makes them hold losers too long. Recency bias makes them overvalue recent results. These biases are not weaknesses. They are natural tendencies. But when unrecognized, they corrupt decision-making. The self-aware trader studies these biases, not academically, but experientially. They notice when bias arises in real time. I'm only seeing bullish setups because I want this trade to work. This acknowledgement weakens the bias's hold, restoring clarity. Pattern recognition also operates in the emotional dimension of time. Many traders repeat the same psychological cycles: hope, fear, overconfidence, and despair, in endless loops. They experience déjà vu. I can't believe I made the same mistake again. What's missing is not discipline but awareness of timing. These cycles often correspond to external factors: fatigue, stress, boredom, or unmet emotional needs. The self-aware trader identifies these triggers. They recognize that overtrading often emerges from the need for stimulation, not opportunity. Once identified, the cycle can be interrupted before it repeats. Self-awareness deepens when a trader embraces radical honesty. It's easy to deceive oneself, to rationalize bad trades, to blame the market, to inflate wins, but progress demands truth. The trader must confront their weaknesses with precision and compassion. This honesty is not self-criticism. It's clarity. The more accurately one sees themselves, the faster they evolve. The market rewards clarity because it punishes delusion. Traders who live in illusion repeat mistakes indefinitely. Traders who face truth evolve continuously. The practice of mindfulness integrates seamlessly into self-awareness. Mindfulness is simply sustained observation of the present moment, without judgment. For traders, this means being aware of breath, body, and thought during trading. It means noticing the tension before clicking buy, the excitement after a green candle, the anxiety before a close. This awareness builds resilience because it grounds the trader in reality. The market no longer feels overwhelming because the trader is no longer lost in mental projection. Each decision becomes deliberate, each action conscious. Pattern recognition in trading also matures with exposure. The more time spent observing markets, the more the subconscious collects data. But experience alone does not create insight. Without awareness, experience becomes repetition. With awareness, experience becomes wisdom. Profitable traders integrate observation with reflection. They don't just watch markets, they watch themselves watching markets. This meta-awareness accelerates pattern recognition exponentially, because it transforms every moment, win or lose, into feedback for growth. The synthesis of self-awareness and pattern recognition leads to what can be described as psychological precision. The trader becomes attuned not only to the nuances of price, but to the subtleties of their own internal state. They sense when confidence is authentic versus inflated, when caution is prudence versus fear. This precision turns trading into an art form, a dance between inner and outer dynamics. Profitable traders often describe being in sync with the market. That synchronization is not mystical, it is the result of deep self-awareness combined with acute pattern recognition. Through continuous observation and refinement, the trader becomes both scientist and subject. The market becomes a mirror reflecting their psychology. Every hesitation reveals fear. Every premature exit reveals impatience. Every oversized position reveals greed. Self-awareness transforms these reflections from judgments into data points. Over time, the trader stops resisting what they see. They accept their tendencies fully, and in doing so, they transcend them. What once was unconscious compulsion becomes conscious choice. What once felt like chaos becomes rhythm. As the trader matures, self-awareness and pattern recognition merge into intuition, a state where decision-making feels effortless, yet precise. This intuition is not emotional impulse. It's the distilled product of awareness sharpened by repetition. It's the mind's ability to recognize complex patterns, both internal and external, without conscious analysis. The trader knows when to enter, when to stay out, when to cut losses. Not because of rigid rules, but because of alignment between awareness, experience, and market structure. This is the invisible edge of the profitable trader, the ability to see clearly not just the chart, but themselves within it. Every candle tells a story, but every reaction to that candle tells an even deeper one. When awareness reaches this depth, trading ceases to be a constant emotional struggle, and becomes a state of observation, adaptation, and flow. Trading is not a sprint. It is a psychological marathon that exposes the trader's deepest strengths and most fragile weaknesses over time. The difference between those who last and those who burn out has little to do with intelligence or even strategy. It is rooted in consistency, the ability to maintain a stable mental and emotional framework across months, years, and even decades of changing markets. Long-term psychological consistency is not about perfection or emotional numbness. It is about endurance. It is the disciplined equilibrium that allows a trader to navigate the inevitable highs and lows of the market, without losing balance, identity, or purpose. The market is an amplifier of human emotion. It rewards discipline and punishes impulsivity. Yet it tempts even the most seasoned trader to deviate from their plan. Every chart, every tick, Every fluctuation presents an opportunity to break character. Over time, this constant exposure to uncertainty wears on the psyche. Without a framework of consistency, the trader's emotional state becomes reactive, shifting with every win and loss. Profitable traders understand that the true edge lies not in the system, but in the mind that executes it the same way under all conditions. Consistency is what turns a good strategy into a sustainable one. Psychological consistency begins with identity. Traders who define themselves by outcomes are inherently unstable because outcomes fluctuate. A winning streak inflates confidence. A losing streak deflates it. The self becomes tied to performance, creating a fragile identity dependent on external validation. Consistent traders anchor their identity in process, discipline, and resilience. They see themselves not as winners or losers, but as practitioners of a craft. This internal stability provides immunity against the market's emotional volatility. It allows them to remain centered when everything around them moves unpredictably. Routine is the backbone of consistency. The human mind craves rhythm. Without it, stress and decision fatigue multiply. Profitable traders design routines that ground them in structure, pre-market preparation, analysis, journaling, reviewing trades, and periods of rest. These routines serve as anchors amid chaos. They provide psychological continuity even when market conditions shift dramatically. A structured process reduces the cognitive load of trading decisions and frees the mind to focus on execution rather than emotion. The undisciplined trader, lacking this structure, becomes reactive, swayed by impulses, news, and the random noise of price fluctuations. Consistency also requires emotional neutrality. Markets are designed to provoke emotional extremes: fear during losses, euphoria during wins. Long-term traders train themselves to remain balanced, recognizing that both emotions distort perception. After a big win, the mind tends to overestimate skill. After a big loss, it underestimates it. The consistent trader views both as statistical events, not personal judgments. This neutrality is not apathy. It is awareness. It is the recognition that neither success nor failure defines the self, but how one responds to them does. Over the long term, mental fatigue becomes one of the greatest threats to consistency. Trading requires constant decision-making under uncertainty, which depletes psychological energy. Without recovery and self-regulation, this fatigue manifests as emotional instability, impulsivity, or detachment. Profitable traders understand the importance of psychological maintenance. They treat their mind as an athlete treats the body, requiring rest, conditioning, and renewal. They step away from the market when clarity fades, recognizing that absence can be more productive than forced activity. The ability to sustain peak performance over years depends on this cyclical management of mental energy. Self-discipline lies at the heart of psychological consistency. It is easy to be disciplined when conditions are favorable, but true consistency is tested during drawdowns, frustration, and boredom. Markets move through long stretches of stagnation, where opportunities are scarce. The inconsistent trader forces trades out of impatience, unable to tolerate inactivity. The consistent trader waits. They understand that not trading is also a decision, and often the most profitable one. This restraint stems from maturity, the recognition that consistency in action requires consistency in thought, and thought must be guided by clarity rather than craving. The long-term trader develops what can be called emotional memory. Through repetition, the brain learns patterns of reaction and correction. Every impulsive mistake, every undisciplined trade, leaves a psychological imprint. The consistent trader reviews these imprints through reflection and journaling, transforming them into lessons. Over time, this creates a subconscious database of emotional awareness. They begin to sense when they are deviating from optimal behavior before it fully manifests. This internal feedback system allows them to self-correct in real time, maintaining alignment with their process. Psychological consistency is also about adaptability within discipline. The market evolves, and rigid traders who cling to outdated strategies eventually fade. Consistency does not mean inflexibility. It means applying the same disciplined mindset to new environments. The consistent trader adjusts methods while maintaining the integrity of principles. They may alter position sizing, adapt to volatility, or evolve technical tools, but their psychological foundation, risk control, patience, awareness, remains unshaken. This adaptability ensures survival through every phase of the market cycle. Ego is one of the greatest disruptors of long-term consistency. The ego craves recognition, thrives on validation, and seeks to avoid pain. In trading, these tendencies lead to destructive behaviors. Revenge trading, overconfidence after wins, denial after losses. The consistent trader dissolves ego through humility. They accept that the market is larger than them, that mastery is never permanent, and that control is an illusion. This humility creates psychological longevity. Ego-driven traders may experience temporary success, but they inevitably collapse under the weight of emotional instability. A critical aspect of maintaining consistency is emotional recovery after loss. Every trader experiences drawdowns, both financial and theological. The inconsistent trader internalizes loss as failure, questioning their worth, or abandoning their system altogether. The consistent trader absorbs loss as data. They ask, "Did I follow my rules?" rather than "Why did I lose?" This separation between execution and outcome protects confidence. By focusing on controllable variables, they maintain trust in their process even during temporary setbacks. This resilience compounds over time, reinforcing both mental strength and performance stability. The consistent trader also cultivates patience, not as a passive quality, but as an active skill. Patience is psychological theater in slow motion. It is the ability to wait without anxiety, to observe without interference. Patience allows traders to align with market rhythm rather than imposing their will upon it. This synchronization reduces friction and conserves energy. Inconsistency arises when impatience demands action before clarity exists. Over the years, traders who master patience discover that consistency grows not from frequency of trades, but from precision of timing. Stress management is another essential component of long-term stability. Markets are designed to test emotional thresholds, sudden reversals, unpredictable volatility, and prolonged uncertainty. The consistent trader develops techniques to regulate stress before it becomes decision-altering. This might involve mindfulness, exercise, structured breaks, or meditation. The goal is not to eliminate stress, but to prevent it from mutating into panic. A calm mind perceives reality accurately. A stressed mind distorts it. Over years of trading, this ability to maintain calm under pressure becomes a competitive advantage, as powerful as any technical edge. Another defining trait of long-term consistency is perspective. The consistent trader zooms out. They measure success not in days or weeks, but in years. This long horizon dilutes the emotional impact of short-term fluctuations. Each loss becomes just one of many, each win a temporary event. This perspective prevents overreaction and keeps the emotional curve flat. The inconsistent trader, focused on immediate gratification, oscillates between extremes of hope and despair. This emotional volatility erodes decision quality and drains psychological capital. Consistent traders stay focused on the cumulative trajectory rather than momentary noise. Habits form the infrastructure of psychological consistency. Every small daily decision, logging trades, reviewing setups, following risk parameters, reinforces mental structure. Consistency in habits breeds consistency in outcomes. The trader who treats discipline as routine removes willpower from the equation. There is no debate, no negotiation with emotion. The habit executes itself over years. These small rituals accumulate into identity. The trader no longer strives to be disciplined. They simply are. This identity-based discipline outlasts motivation, which fades with mood and circumstance. Cognitive balance is another layer of long-term consistency. The market requires traders to think in probabilities while acting decisively, a paradox that strains the mind. Too much analysis leads to paralysis. Too much conviction leads to recklessness. The consistent trader navigates this tension gracefully. They think deeply, but act simply. Their thought process is structured, yet flexible, analytical yet intuitive. This cognitive harmony comes from repeated exposure to uncertainty and the gradual conditioning of the nervous system to tolerate it without collapse. Over time, consistent traders develop a detached relationship with the market. They understand that the market is not a personal adversary or ally. It is an impersonal system. This detachment frees them from emotional entanglement. They stop taking losses personally or victories as validation. This objectivity keeps decision-making clean. When emotion no longer contaminates perception, the trader can see patterns, probabilities, and risks with clarity. This mental clarity is the true foundation of sustained performance. Long-term consistency is also reinforced by community and accountability. Even though trading is solitary, consistent traders often surround themselves with structures that promote reflection and discipline. Mentorship, peer discussions, or review groups. This accountability prevents drift. It keeps the mind honest and self-aware. The inconsistent trader isolates themselves in pride or shame, losing perspective. The consistent trader welcomes constructive scrutiny, understanding that self-reflection is amplified through shared insight. Resilience is inseparable from consistency. There will be periods of failure so profound that quitting seems rational. The consistent trader endures these periods not through blind optimism but through an unshakable belief in their process and the willingness to adapt. They view setbacks as seasonal, not terminal. This resilience compounds over years, building mental fortitude. Each recovery reinforces the mind's ability to face future adversity with less fear. Over time, consistency becomes self-perpetuating because the mind trusts itself fully. Another critical aspect of long-term consistency is emotional detachment from money. Traders who focus solely on monetary outcomes experience erratic emotions, elation in gains, despair in losses. This volatility destroys discipline. Consistent traders focus on execution metrics, risk-to-reward ratios, adherence to plan, trade quality. Money becomes a byproduct of behavior, not the goal itself. This shift from financial obsession to process devotion stabilizes the emotional system. Ironically, it also leads to greater profitability, because decisions are made from clarity, not craving. The environment surrounding the trader also affects consistency. Workspace organization, physical health, and lifestyle habits all feed into psychological balance. A cluttered environment breeds distraction. A chaotic routine magnifies stress. Consistent traders engineer their environment to minimize noise, clean desks, set hours, defined routines. They align their physical world with their mental discipline. Over the years, this environmental harmony supports long-term focus and reduces the friction that erodes consistency. Long-term consistency also requires philosophical grounding, a deeper reason for trading beyond money. When purpose is shallow, motivation fades under pressure. Traders who connect their practice to mastery, freedom, or personal growth find resilience in meaning. This purpose anchors them through long plateaus and drawdowns. It transforms trading from a pursuit of profit into a discipline of evolution. This intrinsic motivation sustains psychological balance long after external rewards lose their appeal. Ultimately, psychological consistency matures through repetition, reflection, and surrender. It is not achieved overnight. It is forged through thousands of trades, countless emotional tests, and repeated exposure to volatility. Each cycle of fear, greed, and recovery refines emotional endurance. The trader learns not to suppress emotion, but to coexist with it, not to predict markets, but to align with them, not to control outcomes, but to control reactions. Over years, this mindset hardens into a calm, steady presence, the mark of a trader who endures while others fade. When a trader evolves beyond the early stages of emotional chaos and cognitive rigidity, they begin to understand that mastery is not the perfection of any single element, but the integration of many: mind, strategy, and environment, all working as one coherent system. The seventh keynote, the culmination of the psychological journey, is the realization that sustainable trading success emerges from harmony. Profitable traders are not simply skilled at reading charts or managing risk. They have aligned their internal world with their external craft. The mind no longer fights the market. It moves with it. Strategy is no longer mechanical. It is an expression of awareness. The environment is not a distraction. It is a reflection of discipline. Integration is the final frontier of trading psychology, because it represents wholeness, the point where self-awareness, emotional balance, and cognitive precision merge into seamless execution. The fragmented trader operates in conflict. Their mind says one thing, their emotions say another, and their strategy stands as a theoretical construct disconnected from both. This fragmentation leads to constant friction, hesitation during good setups, impulsive entries during boredom, paralysis after losses. The integrated trader experiences none of this conflict, because their components are synchronized. Thought, emotion, and action align under a single framework of awareness. The mind supports the strategy rather than sabotaging it. Each decision arises from clarity, not confusion. This is what allows profitable traders to execute with calm conviction, even when markets are chaotic. Their strength lies not in prediction, but in integration. Integration begins with internal coherence. The trader must first bring unity within themselves. Every contradiction, every internal resistance, must be faced and resolved. For instance, if a trader's conscious goal is consistency, but their subconscious still craves the excitement of risk, these opposing forces will eventually collide. The result will be self-sabotage disguised as bad luck. The process of internal integration involves confronting these hidden motives and aligning them with conscious intention. When desire, logic, and behavior move in the same direction, performance remains fluid. This is the mental state of effortless discipline, the ability to do what one knows they should do, without inner resistance. The integration of mind also extends to emotional intelligence. A trader cannot suppress emotion, but they can integrate it into awareness. Fear becomes a signal rather than an enemy. Excitement becomes energy rather than recklessness. Emotions, when understood, enhance performance. They provide feedback about position sizing, conviction, and exposure. The integrated trader doesn't fight their feelings, they interpret them. When tension rises, it is not a distraction. It is information. This emotional literacy transforms volatility from chaos into rhythm. The trader becomes both observer and participant, flowing between detachment and engagement as needed. Strategy integration follows naturally once the mind stabilizes. Inconsistent traders constantly modify their systems, because they seek emotional comfort in change. When their psychology stabilizes, their strategy stops being a source of confusion and becomes an extension of their mental framework. The integrated trader no longer trades a system. They embody it. Every rule reflects their personal temperament. Risk parameters match their emotional threshold. Trade frequency aligns with their patience level, and time frames fit their cognitive rhythm. There is no imitation, no borrowed method, only a system refined through self-understanding. This is why true trading edges are personal. They are not discovered in books or indicators. They are built from the integration of one's psychological nature with one's strategic design. The environment completes this triad of integration. The trader's physical and digital surroundings mirror their internal order. The workspace of a consistent trader reflects calm precision, organized charts, structured routines, limited distractions. This physical structure reinforces mental clarity. Conversely, a chaotic environment amplifies cognitive noise, leading to impulsive behavior. Integration, therefore, extends beyond the mind into the spaces where thought and action occur. The environment becomes part of the trader's nervous system, influencing attention, emotion, and energy flow. Profitable traders treat their workspace like a cockpit, every element calibrated for focus, every distraction removed through deliberate design. As integration deepens, the trader experiences what psychologists call flow. In this state, time perception dissolves, self-consciousness fades, and action becomes spontaneous yet accurate. Decisions feel effortless, because they are made from a place of complete alignment between awareness and execution. This flow state is not random. It is cultivated through years of psychological refinement and structural discipline. It arises when the mind trusts itself completely, when strategy is second nature, and when the environment supports rather than hinders focus. Flow is the manifestation of integration in motion. The integrated trader also develops a new relationship with uncertainty. Where once uncertainty provoked anxiety, it now provokes curiosity. They no longer interpret randomness as threat, but as opportunity for engagement. Because their system and psychology are aligned, they can operate fluidly in both calm and volatile markets. They adjust risk dynamically, not reactively, because decision-making is rooted in awareness rather than emotion. Uncertainty loses its destructive power because it no longer disrupts coherence. Instead, it becomes the natural context in which clarity expresses itself. Integration also means continuity between trading and life. The mindset cultivated in markets, discipline, patience, reflection, spills into daily living. Likewise, the principles of balance and presence developed outside trading reinforce performance inside it. The integrated trader doesn't compartmentalize their identity. They are the same person on and off the charts. Their self-worth is not dictated by performance. It flows from a deeper sense of purpose. This balance prevents burnout, as the trader's life supports their craft rather than competing with it. In contrast, the fragmented trader lives in duality, calm in personal life, but chaotic in markets, or successful in markets, but unstable outside of them. Integration removes these boundaries, creating a unified existence built on awareness and alignment. At a higher level, integration leads to detachment from the illusion of final mastery. The trader stops chasing perfection because they realize that mastery is not a destination, but a dynamic state of equilibrium. The market changes, the trader evolves, and integration becomes the ongoing process of harmonizing both. There is no fixed edge, only the ability to stay synchronized with constant change. This realization dissolves frustration and fosters peace. The trader no longer demands certainty. They seek alignment, no longer obsessed with controlling outcomes. They focus on controlling their internal state, knowing that external results follow naturally. Integration also manifests as minimalism. When mind, strategy, and environment align, excess falls away. The trader no longer clutters their charts with indicators or their thoughts with opinions. Simplicity becomes a form of sophistication. Each decision is distilled to its essence, clean, intentional, and precise. This simplicity creates space for clarity. It removes noise, not only from the screen, but from the psyche. Trading becomes an act of presence, a dialogue between perception and probability, stripped of unnecessary complexity. The most profound effect of integration is psychological longevity. Most traders fail not because they lack skill, but because they exhaust themselves emotionally. Fragmentation drains energy. Integration conserves it. When thought, feeling, and behavior operate in harmony, there is no internal friction. Energy that was once lost to anxiety, doubt, or impulsivity is now directed toward focus and creativity. The trader can sustain high performance without burnout because their system operates efficiently. Over years, this efficiency compounds, leading to exponential psychological growth and consistency. Integration ultimately transforms trading into a mirror of consciousness. The market ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a teacher. Each fluctuation reveals something about awareness, patience, and attachment. Every loss is a lesson in surrender. Every win, a reminder of impermanence. The trader evolves from a participant seeking gain into an observer seeking understanding. This perspective transcends profit. It leads to mastery of self. The trader no longer measures success solely by account balance, but by alignment between inner and outer worlds. The journey of trading psychology is a journey inward. It begins with chaos, fear, greed, overconfidence, and confusion. It moves through stages of awareness, adaptation, detachment, and resilience. It ends not in the elimination of uncertainty, but in the acceptance of it. Each keynote, emotional regulation, cognitive flexibility, detachment from outcome, resilience to uncertainty, self-awareness, and long-term consistency, represents a stage in psychological evolution. Together, they form a progression from fragmentation to integration. The trader who embodies these principles transcends the need for external control and learns to navigate markets through internal mastery. In the beginning, trading feels like a war against the market. Later, it becomes a war against the self. Eventually, it becomes neither. The trader realizes that both market and self are reflections of the same universal rhythm. Uncertainty flowing through different forms. The integrated trader no longer fights that rhythm. They synchronize with it. Every decision, every risk, every trade becomes part of a larger process of awareness unfolding through time. Profitable traders are not defined by how much they earn, but by how they think, feel, and act under uncertainty. They have trained the mind to remain stable in chaos, flexible in change, detached in outcome, resilient in loss, aware in emotion, and consistent in behavior. These are not traits one is born with. They are cultivated through struggle, reflection, and persistence. The market is both the test and the teacher. It punishes illusion and rewards awareness. The final lesson of trading psychology is that mastery is not control. It is surrender with intelligence. It is the ability to act decisively without clinging to expectation, to lose without losing composure, and to win without losing humility. The trader who reaches this level has transcended the emotional turbulence that destroys most participants. They operate from stillness, not because they are unaffected by the market, but because they are no longer divided within themselves. The mental edge that divides profitable traders from failures is not a secret formula or hidden technique. It is psychological integrity, the alignment of thought, emotion, and action under uncertainty. When the trader's mind is stable, their perception is clear. When perception is clear, decision-making is precise. When decisions are precise, results become consistent. Every great trader has, in their own way, walked this same inner path, from emotional chaos to calm execution, from cognitive rigidity to adaptive flow, from obsession with outcome to harmony with process. The true victory in trading is not in conquering the market, but in mastering the self. When that mastery is achieved, the market stops being an enemy and becomes an expression of awareness itself. Each trade becomes a reflection of clarity, each loss a teacher, each moment an opportunity to remain centered within uncertainty. In this state of internal integration, profit is no longer the goal. It is the inevitable consequence of mental equilibrium sustained over time.